Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off with a family drama triggered by a contested will. When our OP inherits a substantial share due to a deceased father, meanwhile tensions rise among other cousins. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. How I reminded my cousin why I got the inheritance I did. My 29-year-old female grandparents had 3 kids. My dad was the middle child. He passed away when I was 19. I'm an only child. There are 6 grandchildren total. My grandpa died around 2 years ago. My grandma died around 4 years ago. In the final will, it was stipulated each grandchild gets a set amount and each child gets a set amount. In this will, it also states that if their child predeceased them, then their share goes to any children they have. So I got my share plus my father's. This is not a small amount, but I'm not a multimillionaire either. Of the other grandchildren, I'm considered the least successful in that I have my associate's degree and work as a legal assistant. I have a dog and live independently in an apartment near my job. My other cousins are all very wealthy, with advanced degrees and multiple kids each. I have one cousin, though, who's successful but lives way beyond his means and mooches off his parents, my dad's sister and husband, when bill collectors come around. I'll 100% admit he's had a rough life. His father left when he was a kid and his mom remarried a lot, so my grandparents basically raised him. So it all came as a shock to him when he only received the amount of us other cousins. So much so that he tried to contest the will. It took a year and at least a third of his inheritance only for him to be disappointed in the end. After talking it over with my mom and my boss, I've decided to take a leave of absence from work. I've been there about 5 years and have a very close relationship with my boss. I'm taking this time to do some traveling and physically work on myself, losing that pesky 30 pounds that haunts me. Me and that cousin live in the same area of town and go to the same gym. Always have gotten along, but he loves to make those snide comments. I've run into him a few times. He finally approached me with a, "Why are you here during the day?" I told him that I'm between jobs now, instead of admitting I left voluntarily, and once again got a "must be nice with all that money lying around." After 2 years of hearing these comments, I'll admit I finally kinda snapped. Replied, "Well, let's just remember how I got this money. Want to trade your mom's life for it?" I'll admit it was a low blow, but at the same time, I only have this money because my father is dead. Just because he feels entitled to my grandparents' money doesn't give him the right to constantly remind me that I got a large share of it. I had to pay my own price for it. Anyways, he told me to F off and stormed away. I haven't seen him since. When I told my mother, she was quite angry with me, reminding me his own father abandoned him. I still don't think I did anything wrong, but maybe I did. And our second story. I don't work here. I'm a patient. This happened a few days ago. I, 26-year-old female, am 11 weeks pregnant with my second child. I work at an optical center as a technician, and our uniform is plain scrubs that can be any color but no pattern. On this day, I just returned to work after having to quarantine due to having COVID. I started my shift at 9 a.m. I seemed fine and was so glad to be back at work. About an hour and a half into my shift, I was with one of our patients doing an eye test called an optos. While standing at the machine, I started to feel unwell. It started with sudden, severe nausea, which quickly was accompanied by a dizzy feeling. Then my eyesight started to go black at the edges. I've had vertigo my entire life, so I attributed this to a normal vertigo episode that would be done in a few seconds. However, when I didn't start to feel better after a few seconds, I knew something was wrong. I left the patient I was with and went out into the hall and called for my supervisor, who was also with the patient. When she came out and asked what was wrong, I got so far as, "I don't feel too good," before everything went black and I woke up on the floor with our eye doctor leaning over me, telling someone to call 911. At the hospital, they couldn't find any reason as to why I fainted and only gave "you're pregnant" as a possible cause. When I was told I could go home, I started getting dressed and went out into the waiting room to wait for my fiancé to pick me up. At this point, I was wearing my maroon scrubs. In the 30 minutes it took my fiancé to leave work to come get me, he didn't know what happened until I was able to call him. I had several people come up to me asking how long they had to wait to be seen. After telling so many people I didn't work there, some more rudely than once, I unintentionally yelled at this old lady who rudely asked me why I was sitting around instead of working on getting her an ER room. Listen, B, I do not work here. I'm a patient. Just because I'm wearing scrubs doesn't mean I work at the hospital. Leave me the heck alone, please. At this point, I was almost in hysterical tears because I didn't feel good and just wanted to go home and lay down. Now, I feel bad for yelling at the woman, but surely she should have heard me telling other people I didn't work there. Don't feel bad. She made an assumption and started to berate you for it. Your yelling might make her think twice in the future. And our next story. Woman expects me to watch her kid whole days for free and has her kid make the appointments. I'm a 20-year-old student, self-employed, and work odd hours, so I told my landlady she's free to give my number to anyone in the building who needs a babysitter or tutor for their kids. That's how I met EM, entitled Mom. EM has A, B, and C who are 9, 4, and 1 years old. I'll be OP. She asked me to come over for dinner to meet the kids before I start working, picking them up once every other week, feeding and putting to bed. Okay, I go over there twice to eat with them and play with the youngest. I didn't charge her because, hey, free dinner. But we've agreed to 10 euros an hour. During my second visit, I was asked to set the table. No, OP has to do it. My babysitter has to do everything I say. The mother didn't respond to this, not even a flinch. I was the one to tell A that I'm not her maid and she should listen to her mother giving her a simple chore. Okay, she did it. Later, EM tells me she also needs me to turn off night mode on my phone so she can call me at night. I told her no, but maybe my roommate can do some night shifts. I doubt it. We both have the same disability and it's crucial that we get sleep. EM proceeds to say she needs one person to always be on the clock because it's so traumatic for her kids to switch babysitter. Oh, also I needed to take my Thursday classes next year just in case she needs me on a Thursday. At this point, I told her we need to agree to some hours now, and I'm not obligated to work outside of that schedule. I got to be able to schedule other work and hospital visits, and I'm definitely not skipping classes. She agreed. I got all my hours through 2018. On my way out, she complimented my flared jeans and told me she was looking for similar pants for important. I told her they can easily be made from a pair of old jeans. She went on a little rant about how she doesn't have the time, but maybe I could. I said I'll take a paid sewing job. Fast forward to my birthday weekend 2 weeks ago, the day before my birthday. I received a text from a new number. Hey, OP, can I come over today? From A. I asked the mom what's up, and apparently she thought it was completely appropriate to give her 9-year-old my number. She just decided that on a Saturday, I was completely ready to take in her kid, do a sewing project with her, feed her lunch out of my pocket, and entertain her. And she didn't plan on paying. It was part of getting to know her kids. I said the kid can come over if she needs a sitter, but I'll charge her for babysitting and lunch and I'll continue working. Mother says okay, and she'll tell her kid to come over. Never showed up. It wasn't a huge inconvenience since I didn't have plans to leave the house, but definitely annoying. 10 p.m., I get a text from the child. I had something better to do today, but I'll be there tomorrow. My response, you cannot come tomorrow. It's my birthday and I'm having a party. A, you're excused. WTF? I agreed to do a job during specific hours. Not to be your unpaid servant, lady. And our last story. A millionaire grandpa and his huge inheritance. This is the story of my father. He's now over 60 years old, and it's a bit complicated. My father's father was quite a successful businessman. You may have even heard his name before. Additionally, he was an even bigger womanizer than a businessman, so my father had more than 7 half-brothers and sisters from different families. If he did this nowadays, he'd probably be dragged through the courts, but back then I think it was considered normal for a wealthy man. When my father became an adult, he even interacted with some of them. But everything changed after my grandfather died and left his inheritance. The majority of his property, about 50%, was left to my father as his firstborn. I don't know what was going through the old man's head, since after the divorce, my father and my grandmother lived quite poorly. and grandfather treated my father like a pariah. But apparently he saw himself as some kind of powerful prince or something like that and decided to leave most of his estate to my father. By this time, my father had trained as a car mechanic and had already managed to open his own workshop after several years of working for a boss. He'd just gotten married about a year ago, and he and my mother were already expecting me. And then suddenly, my father found out that he had received a huge house and more than $5 million at the time. Also, a collection of expensive watches and jewelry, and a vintage Mercedes fully restored to museum condition. It seemed like everything was great, but my father received something else with this property. Nearby stood a smaller house, which also used to belong to my grandfather, but now belonged to my grandfather's last wife, whom we will classically call Karen. She looked like a tall brunette with a large chest and a ton of makeup on her face, and what was strange, she was a year younger than my father. Karen inherited only the house and nothing else, and since she'd never worked a day and lived on my grandfather's money and came from somewhere in Europe, it was a big surprise for her that you had to pay to maintain the house. At first, she lived, as I understood, on the remnants of money, constantly partying with young guys and having parties, but then the money started to run out, and Karen tried to get into my father's good graces and become his girlfriend. My father, after growing up in such conditions, greatly valued his family and his wife, so he categorically threw Karen out and said he would consider it trespassing if he saw her near his house again and would act accordingly. Karen decided to play big and decided to sell her house, but she decided to do it along with my father's land. She had old documents that her house was built earlier, and all the land from the two houses used to be listed under it. So Karen put the house up for sale, and my father saw the house for sale and recommended it to his lawyer. The lawyer was visiting my father and really liked the area, and he was thinking of buying there. He decided to check all Karen's papers and saw that my father's land was also for sale and realized that it was a scam. The lawyer sued her on behalf of my father for fraud. Karen faced a large fine and even prison time, plus huge legal costs. So Karen requested a deal. She agreed to sell the house for 3 times cheaper to my father. That's what they decided. Then my father sold the house to the lawyer at a big discount for such a service, and Karen went somewhere to New England. If you're interested in this story, then a large inheritance and many half-brothers and sisters with claims spawned several such stories. Perhaps I'll share them too. Although, as you can see, I'm not much of a writer. I don't even know if father was lucky with such a grandfather or not, but the story turned out to be quite amusing. I hope Karen learned her lesson. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.